Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Wednesday. Glad you're here. Today's Red Mic message: build your bench. When I was sitting in my fraternity pledge class, our inductor, our pledge trainer, a guy named Pat Nobles, who ended up being a football coach, he told us to look around the room and to try to figure out who the future president was, or maybe even more than one president of the chapter might be from the people in the room. He said, just take a moment, look around. Do you see a future president in this room with you right now? I was young. I was just cocky enough that I thought, okay, yeah, that could be me. And because my brain tends to equate everything to pop culture, the opening scene in Top Gun popped into my head. You got Viper, Tom Skerritt, standing at the front of the room. He's looking at the class. He's looking at Maverick, and then he's looking at the Top Gun plaque, and he says, in case you're wondering who the best is, they're up here on this plaque. Now, do you think your name will be up here? And of course, Maverick goes, yes, sir. He's clicking his pen like he's already writing his name. And Viper says, that's pretty arrogant considering the company you're in. And he says, yes, sir. And Viper says he liked it. Now, that stayed with me because confidence and arrogance, well, they look a lot alike quite often. Eventually, time will sort it out because confidence and arrogance, yes, they can be indistinguishable, but ability and competence end up erasing any lines between them, and you can clearly delineate, okay, they weren't they weren't arrogant, they were just confident because they knew they had the skills, right? That moment was more than just Maverick. It was about the room. It was about recognizing the potential. It was looking around and realizing other people have potential. They have the capability of becoming something. Talk about more of that in a minute. But as always, Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons I've picked up from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. The lessons from Top Gun, the lessons from my pledge class: leadership is not about being the guy on the plaque. It's making sure that there are people ready to replace you when you're gone. If you're in a leadership role, it is more than prudent. It's necessary. You have to look at the people on your team through a very specific lens. Who, if anybody, could step into a bigger role? Who could fill my shoes if they needed to? Because whether you like it or not, people leave. They get promoted, they get recruited, they take opportunities that are better for their families. And when that happens, you don't get to hit pause on the mission, on the job, while you try to fill that hole. If you're in a leadership role, you're going to run into this at some point. You invest in somebody, you train them, you give them opportunities, responsibility, trust, and then one day they've outgrown you. They get an opportunity somewhere else, a better opportunity, more money, more growth, a better career trajectory, something that makes better sense for their life and the life of the people that they love, their family. And if you've done your job correctly, it's going to sting a little bit because good people that you've spent a lot of time and effort, money, etc., they're hard to replace. But you got to remember, you don't hold them back. You don't make it all about you. You don't treat their success like your loss. I've never understood the the leaders who get mad at somebody for leaving. Well, if you're going to leave, you should just go ahead and leave now. I don't even need your 2 weeks. That's just, that's arrogance. That's petulance. That's sour grapes. You shake their hand, you tell them you're proud of them, and you let them go. I've always tried to view people on my team who move on to better things as almost being an ambassador of sorts for me. You worked for Patrick. Okay. I know of his reputation. Good, good. You know, now, am I arrogant enough to think that there's anybody actually saying that? No. I'd like to think it, but I don't think it. But if somebody goes and does a great job and I had a part in building them up to the point to where they got that job, well, hopefully eventually that will mean something about me. Leadership is not about ownership. It's about stewardship. You don't keep people, you prepare them. And sometimes the proof that you did it right is that somebody else recognizes their value too. So if you're building your team the right way, you're not starting from scratch when that happens. Because in addition to that person that you built to the point to where they can leave, you've developed other resources on your team. You've given other people chances to grow into something more. And then that way, when that moment comes, you don't panic, you don't scramble because you've been building the next Tom Brady, right? Remember, Tom Brady was not a starter. He was a deep, deep, deep draft pick. And when the moment came, he stepped up. He was ready. You've got to do that too. You've got to make sure that whoever's behind you, behind your right-hand man, behind your rock star, you've got to make sure that whoever's going to move up into that next role, that they're ready too. That is not luck. That's preparation. Because remember, you're responsible for all of the people behind you, the ones coming up, the ones watching how you lead, the ones quietly asking themselves, could I do that job? If you are going to be a good leader, you don't just solve today's problems, you try to prevent tomorrow's crisis. And a lot of leaders make the mistake that they train people just enough to do their current job, and then they get surprised when they're not ready for the next one. That's not a talent problem. It's a leadership problem. It's a development problem. If your team falls apart when one person leaves, you did not build a team, you built a dependency. I've seen it in coaching. If you get that one kid who can do everything, run the ball, throw the ball, play defense, everybody just fills in around him. If he gets hurt, if he gets injured, if he gets grounded because his grades are bad, whatever it is, your whole thing's going to collapse. Is it great to have that star player? Of course it is. They make everybody better, but you've got to be prepared for what happens if they're not around. You've got to develop your team. You've got to develop your bench. You don't just create starters. You build depth. You build confidence. You build people who are ready before they're called. So ask yourself, are you building a bench or are you just running a lineup? One of those survives change, the other one doesn't. Let's circle back to the fraternity. I did eventually become president, but it wasn't because I was the loudest or the cockiest or the guy clicking the pen saying yes, sir. It was over time I developed myself. I built up. I took on leadership roles without the title, took jobs that I probably wasn't really prepared for. Eventually, I was secretary and vice president and then president. And then after I was president, I became the pledge trainer. And I looked at those guys, and there were only 3 of them in my class at that time. And I said, you got to be prepared. Eventually, you're going to be the leaders of this fraternity. Be prepared to build that bench, support your people, train your people, invest in your people. Again, not just for the jobs they have, but for the ones you need them to fill someday, because that day is coming. So you have to make sure that they're ready, because otherwise you're going to be scrambling. So be ready, build your bench. That's today's Red Mike message. Hope you found it interesting or helpful. Hope you're able to use some of these things in your own life, your own workplace. Please give me a like, a follow, and a share. I'd appreciate that a lot. Thanks for being here. I'll see you again next time. And until next time, don't forget, as always, life is short. Drink the bourbon. I'll see you.